Tonight on Ukraine Today. Strike on Kherson. The occupiers launched a massive attack on the city using multiple rocket launchers. At least 3 people were killed, several others injured. New tactics of the invaders. Russia is now sending entire companies of women to storm Ukrainian positions. American sanctions. Putin tries to put on a show and Trump mocks the Russian dictator. The weapon of propaganda. What fake stories are Kremlin's minions spreading to mislead the world and fuel hatred toward Ukraine? All that and more, right now. Hello everyone, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and let's move on to the news. We begin with the situation in Kherson. The occupiers launched a massive attack on the city using multiple rocket launchers. Russia's so-called defense ministry claimed they targeted Ukrainian troops, but as we can clearly see in this video, they hit residential areas. At least 3 people were killed, several others injured. In Kharkiv, at least 6 people were wounded in another strike, this time with Russian-guided bombs. A civilian company and a bus depot were damaged. The enemy also attacked energy facilities in the Dnipro, Kirovograd and Sumy regions. Most parts of Ukraine are now facing scheduled power outages. Ukraine, however, doesn't leave Russian attacks unanswered. Footage has appeared online showing the aftermath of an explosion at the Plastmas plant in Russia's Chelyabinsk region. This factory produces ammunition and explosives, a completely legitimate military target. More hot news from Russia in our next report.
Friendly Ukrainian drones visited a military plastics factory near Chelyabinsk, resulting in a powerful explosion there. The facility manufactures and disposes of munitions. It is reported that at night, UAVs attacked Ryazan and Skopin. Eyewitnesses saw a fire. Reportedly, the targets of the attack were the Dyagilevo airfield and an oil refinery. The occupiers are also feeling the heat on the front line. Paratroopers liberated Kucheryov Yar in the Dobropilya direction and captured more than 50 Russians.
The liberation of this settlement is a continuation of the successful actions of the Ukrainian defense forces in the Dobropilya direction as they neutralize the consequences of the Russian breakthrough deep into Ukrainian positions.
The situation is dire in the city of Pokrovsk, which is under attack by the Russian army. According to the military, evacuation from the city is nearly impossible and civilians can only leave the area on foot.
At this point, the fighting is already taking place almost in the very center of Pokrovsk. This is the area around the railway station where Ukrainian defense forces are destroying small assault groups of Russian occupiers. The occupiers are trying to break through the defenses of the Ukrainian forces in order to create so-called local cauldrons, operational encirclements of our units.
Not only Ukraine is involved, the British Navy intercepted the Russian warship, the destroyer Admiral Kulakov, in its territorial waters, according to Sky News.
The Russian Federation is trying to demonstrate that it is fully prepared to raise the stakes in its confrontation, both with member NATO countries and the United States. Let me remind you, the United States has redeployed its nuclear arsenal to the territory of Great Britain for the first time since 2008.
The head of the Polish Foreign Ministry suggested that Ukrainian forces destroy another target that fuels the Russian war machine, namely to blow up the Druzhba oil pipeline.
The Polish side is well aware that the operation of the Russian Druzhba oil pipeline means, first and foremost, financing the active phase of hostilities on the territory of our country.
The Donald Trump administration lifted a key restriction on Ukraine's use of long-range missiles supplied by Western partners. This effectively allows Kyiv to strike targets on Russian territory and increases military pressure on the Kremlin, according to the Wall Street Journal. Commenting on the information reported by journalists, Trump noted that Ukraine is using European missiles and that he cannot control this. The American president also described the intentions of the Russian dictator.
I've always felt that he wants all of Ukraine, not just a part of it. Now, I think he'll want to enter into negotiations. I think he'll agree. We'll see.
On the morning of October 23rd, The European Union announced the approval of the 19th package of sanctions against Russia. It is aimed at restricting the export of liquefied natural gas and monitoring the activities of the shadow fleet used to transport oil. The measures will also affect Russian banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and companies in China and India that help Moscow circumvent previous sanctions. By the way, due to the budget deficit, the Russian Ministry of Defense has already started to cut costs. For now, they will be saving on items ranging from paper and printer cartridges to construction materials. But in this regard, it's important to understand that this is only the beginning of tightening the belt. There's more to come.
Good thing Ukraine has what it takes to respond. Our country is now a global leader in developing air and sea drones. Let's take a look at some of the newest systems already in service of the defense forces.
The Ukrainian defense industry is ramping up its production. Ukraine is becoming a world leader in weapons manufacturing.
Europe must help Ukraine become a steel porcupine that no aggressor can overcome.
The Security Service of Ukraine has showcased new Sea Baby maritime drones, which have already been tested in combat. The upgraded Sea Babies are capable of traveling over 1,500 kilometers and carrying up to 2 tons of cargo. There are 2 versions. One is equipped with a machine gun mount and an automatic target recognition and tracking system. The second is the Grad maritime platform with a 10-round multiple launch rocket system.
Our drones have changed the balance of power in the Black Sea and have proven their effectiveness. The new generation of Sea Baby is even more effective. Therefore, the work to clear the Black Sea of the Russian fleet will continue in the future.
In addition, the upgraded drones have reinforced engines and a modern navigation system. Earlier, in June 2025, the new models of maritime drones were used during the strike on the Crimean Bridge.
We approached by land, we approached across the water's surface, and in 2025, we approached underwater. There were 2 strikes, each with a force equivalent to 1.1 tons of TNT. As a result, there was serious damage. Its key supports the so-called piers. Essentially, today the bridge operates with a load limit of no more than 5 tons. Trucks are moving. The enemy is not conducting any military logistics there.
Ukraine's allies are in no hurry when it comes to supplying long-range missiles that the armed forces of Ukraine could use to destroy legitimate military targets of the occupiers. Deep in the Russian rear,
The story in the Wall Street Journal claiming that the US allegedly approved the use of Ukrainian long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia is fake news. The US has nothing to do with these missiles.
Kyiv, for its part, has focused on producing a wide range of its own long-range missiles and drones, which are regularly used to strike Russian territory.
If I am being completely honest with you, to tell you the truth,
It's a terrible, unending nightmare. It's turning just right. I love this. What the?
As of today, Ukraine produces dozens of long-range missiles like the long-range Neptune and Fomin every month, as well as thousands of long-range and rocket-powered drones.
in order to somehow to put this war into a stalemate, to turn it into one, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to suppress their logistics and their air force. That's why these are needed. And I'm not even mentioning the necessity of striking Russia's military-industrial enterprises and energy system.
Weapons manufacturers also haven't forgotten about the Ukrainian goddess of war, Bodana. This year, Ukraine became the world leader in the production of self-propelled artillery systems.
Artillery remains the queen, and Ukraine has mastered the production of howitzers.
Despite the role of FPV drones on the front line, artillery has several advantages over drones. First, the range of engagement. For Bodana, this figure is 45 kilometers. Shells are inexpensive and immune to radio jamming, and they are also extremely effective against enemy infantry.
They offer completely different capabilities for striking both enemy personnel and, accordingly, equipment and main points of permanent or temporary enemy deployment.
If the Epidron targets a single objective, meaning a specific serviceman of the occupying army, then accordingly the capabilities of the Bodana self-propelled artillery system are for area strikes.
In other words, this is what holds back the so-called local assaults by Russian occupiers.
A protracted war and defense in such a war require quick and effective solutions from Ukrainian military engineers. While the Russian occupiers continue to dream of demilitarization, Ukraine is gradually becoming the largest arms forge in the world.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. Now is a perfect moment to subscribe and like this video. Please also share it so more people around the world can see the truth. Thank you and glory to Ukraine.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Let's move to the hottest part of the front line, the Pokrovsk sector. There, Russia is sending entire companies of women into assaults. If they fail, they're ordered to dress like civilians and infiltrate Ukrainian positions. Such steps likely come from a catastrophic manpower shortage or from the fact that many Russian women are ready to kill for money. Over the past day alone, Russia lost at least 910 troops killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's 1,135,080 occupiers. During the same period, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 1 Russian tank, 5 armored vehicles, 34 artillery systems and dozens of other pieces of enemy equipment. The occupiers have sentenced Yana Suvorova, the administrator of the Telegram channel Melitopol is Ukraine, to 14 years in prison. She was abducted on August 20th, 2023. The invaders accused her of helping guide HIMARS strikes on a building used by the Russian Guard and the Federal Security Service of Russia. At that time, Yana was just 19 years old. A Russian fighter jet and a refueling plane violated Lithuanian airspace, flying roughly 700 meters into the country and staying there for 18 seconds. Lithuania's defense ministry says 2 NATO Eurofighter Typhoon jets were scrambled to intercept. And now a quick look back just 2 days ago, while discussing a possible meeting between the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russia's so-called Foreign Minister Lavrov in Malaysia, I made this prediction. I guess it'll go like this. They'll meet behind the scenes. Lavrov will say Russia wants all of Ukraine, but can start with Donetsk, Luhansk, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia and Kherson. Rubio will not fly back to Washington, report to the US president, and Trump will be disappointed in Putin again. Well, turns out the Secretary of State didn't even have to meet with Russia's so-called foreign minister. According to Axios, citing US officials, President Trump became even more disappointed with Russia and Putin after a phone call between Rubio and Lavrov. The White House realized that the Kremlin is not ready to discuss ending the war, so there's no point in holding a Trump-Putin summit. And if there's no point in meeting, there's every reason to tighten the screws. For example, by imposing sanctions on Lukoil and Rosneft. Here's how the war criminal and Russian dictator Putin reacted.
As for the new sanctions, first of all, there's nothing new about them. Yes, they are serious for us, of course, that's clear. They will have certain consequences. But overall, they will not significantly affect our economic well-being. Of course, this is an unfriendly act toward Russia, that's obvious. And it doesn't strengthen Russian-American relations, which had only just begun to recover. Naturally, with such actions, the US administration harms Russian-American relations.
And here's how the US president responded when asked about Putin's remarks.
Good, I'm glad he feels that way. That's good. I'll let you know about it in 6 months from now, okay? Let's see how it all works out.
Looks like the White House got really angry with the Kremlin dictator. Putin's been lying to Trump, and well, Trump doesn't like being lied to.
The cancellation of the meeting in Budapest, the green light for strikes with long-range British and French missiles on Russian territory, and sanctions against the 2 largest oil companies in the country, the gas stations. Donald Trump has finally seen the light and decided to crush Putin. What is really happening in the White House?
I've always felt that Putin wants everything, not just a part. I think now he's ready to negotiate. We don't want him to get everything.
As soon as the green light was given from the Oval Office, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee sprang into action as well. There, they supported 3 legislative initiatives aimed against Russia, which started the war in Ukraine. Among other things, this includes recognizing the Russian Federation as a state sponsor of terrorism and the use of frozen assets. However, the Senate itself admits that it's not possible to vote on these bills due to the government shutdown. Nevertheless, in just one day, it seems that across the ocean, they've turned their backs on Putin. But as analysts point out, it's too early to award Trump the hero medal. Donald, as before, doesn't want Ukraine to win. He just wants everything to end as soon as possible along the current lines. He wants to pin on the badge of a great peacemaker and shift all subsequent problems into the hands of the Europeans.
Trump is acting according to his own logic. That is, Ukraine wants peace. It said, yes, we stop at the line of demarcation. So that's it. Ukraine is ready to take the shortest and simplest path. Russia does not want that. So according to Trump's logic, pressure needs to be put on Russia, which is what happened in the form of these sanctions. At the same time, according to Trump's logic, if tomorrow the Russians say, okay, we're ready to negotiate a ceasefire, they will go to these negotiations and will be ready to lift sanctions and make some other concessions. He hopes that with the help of sanctions, he will be able to reach Putin's reason. He'll say, okay, we're losing, you're losing. Let's look for ways to get out of this situation.
Trump, who thinks like a businessman, analysts say, failed to take into account the most important thing, the logic of Putin. The dictator doesn't care about the impoverishment of millions of Russians or the stagnation of the economy. He has his own priorities, and he is not going to change them, neither under the pressure of a stick nor a carrot.
He lives for war, you understand? The future of the Russian economy and oil prices. None of that bothers him at all. There will be money for the front, there will be money for the army, there will be money to recruit soldiers. Those very soldiers will be found. The ones they've been finding for 3-4 years already, they'll find more. That's all he thinks about, and he probably believes that everything is going just fine. And the fact that someday something will collapse, people will live badly, there will be no gasoline or something else. They'll find gasoline for the tanks and everyone else will have to walk. That's basically his entire logic. He doesn't feel sorry for anyone, not just Ukrainians, he doesn't feel sorry for Russians either. So really, what is there to be surprised about?
So far, the only one to react to the demonstrative turn across the ocean has been the unpredictable Dmitry Medvedev, whom analysts say isn't worth reacting to at all. On the contrary, not a single word from any official representatives. And most likely, in Moscow, they will pretend that everything is going according to plan.
Obviously, they don't have any kind of response yet. Medvedev is playing the role of the bad cop and is rude to Trump. But as we've already seen this year, Putin and Trump don't insult each other. They are polite, they just tease each other a little. That's why I don't think Putin will make any radical statements or start insulting Trump and saying that they're now enemies. He'll probably just say something like, he got a bit carried away, we'll talk, we'll work things out. I don't think we're in for anything like him coming out, crying and saying, well, that's it, it's over for me. I renounce power, I lost the war, the new sanctions have crushed me.
Will Vladimir Putin be able to roll everything back? And will Trump fall for empty promises and stalling tactics? It's obvious to analysts that unlike the meeting in Anchorage, the US president realized much faster that the desired showdown wasn't going to happen. But it seems the pendulum has swung. India and China, according to the media, will be forced to give up Russian black gold.
EU leaders have postponed their decision on using 140 billion euros of frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine. According to Bloomberg, Belgium insists on more detailed legal review first. The issue will be revisited in December. And finally, the digest of Russian propaganda, a selection of fake stories Kremlin's minions are spreading to misinform audience and fuel hatred toward Ukraine.
In temporarily occupied Luhansk, a man lost his leg after he kicked a speaker that was playing music by the Ukrainian band Okean LZ.
Someone had left the speaker on Chernomorskaya Street in Luhansk. It was playing a track by the Ukrainian band Okean LZ. One of the passers-by decided to kick the speaker. It exploded. The man's leg was blown off. Passers-by gave him first aid, and then an ambulance arrived. There are 2 victims. In addition to the man who lost his leg, a woman was also injured. She is in moderate condition in the hospital, while the man is in critical condition and is undergoing surgery.
This is yet another fake from Russian propaganda, considering that the city has been under Russian occupation for several years now. What kind of Okean LZ music could there be? In reality, some former special military operation hero detonated a grenade in the city center, injuring 2 people. Meanwhile, Russian television blamed Europe for disrupting the Trump-Putin negotiations. For example, on the Rossiya 1 TV channel, they did not quote Western media, which explained the cancellation of the meeting as being due to Putin's unrealistic demands.
At the same time, Western media report that Brussels and Kiev are preparing to present their own settlement plan, the essence of which is not to address the root causes, but to freeze the conflict.
Everyone except Russia is trying to disrupt the negotiations, as was stated on NTV. Quoting Trump, who said he didn't want to hold a meeting just for the sake of meeting, of course, was also avoided on NTV.
In response to the Western media's claims that the meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump was cancelled, Russia stated that preparations for it are still ongoing. In Moscow, it was explained that foreign media are deliberately distorting information in order to disrupt the negotiations. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing sources, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio are continuing their contacts.
Despite the fact that every day Russian occupiers send hundreds of drones and carry out relentless assaults on Ukrainian cities, the Kremlin allegedly wants to hold negotiations as soon as possible. Z propaganda is also spreading a fake story about a Latvian genocide, mass deportations, deaths in lines for the Russian language exam. The chairman of the State Duma, Volodin, even accused Latvia of exterminating Russians because permanent residents were required to prove their knowledge of the Latvian language.
79 years later, Latvia is following the path of Nazi Germany, persecuting people for dissent, deporting the elderly. This is exactly what Hitler did. But Europe remained silent, and now it has stayed silent for too long. Then fascism came knocking on the door of each of these countries.
A language test is not repression, but a basic requirement to know the language at an elementary level, to be able to ask for directions, understand and talk about yourself. In reality, Russian propaganda is lying. Latvia is not deporting anyone en masse. Out of approximately 30,000 Russians living in the country, most have passed the language test, 2,600 have left voluntarily, and 841 people have been ordered to leave the country for failing to meet the requirements. Even these cases are now being reviewed individually. The number of deportation cases can be counted on one hand. During wartime, it's not just propagandists who profit from propaganda, but also their mistresses. For example, the outlet We Can Explain found that Vladimir Solovyov's mistress began working for her patron at the start of 2022 and has increased her savings more than tenfold since then. The romantic relationship between basketball player Svetlana Abrosimova and Russia's chief propagandist brought her a new job.
Since at least 2022, Abrosimova has been working at M Production, the company that produces the talk show Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, as well as programs for the Solovyov live TV channel. According to leaked data from the Federal Tax Service, Abrosimova's monthly salary ranges from 50 to 100,000 rubles. Svetlana is not mentioned on the company's own website. According to tax records, Abrosimova does not work anywhere else. At the same time, over the past 3 years, she has managed to increase the amount in her bank account tenfold. If in 2021 there were only 8 million rubles in her deposit account at Sberbank, by 2024 this amount had grown to 86 million, which is over $1 million.
Solovyov has not communicated with or lived with his legal wife Elga Seppi for a very long time. Meanwhile, they want to posthumously award the Order of Courage to Ivan Zuev, a journalist from Maria Novosti. Let us recall that the so-called war correspondent died in the Zaporizhzhia region while filming yet another video about how the Russian army is occupying the territory of another country. May the Russian propagandist rest in fiberglass.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. I will see you next time.